Hey guys, thanks for checking out this clip of Anatomy of the Church and State. Be sure to catch the full episode on Rumble or ChristiansForLiberty.com. Links are in the show description. Now, as we're moving towards the war, so let's fast forward. We're approaching the revolution. What is the role in the church, in the government, as we move towards the war? Are we seeing pastors, champion freedom and liberty in this separation from England? What's going on with the church at this point?
I mean, so the state church, the Anglican Church, State Church of England, is still one of the dominant forces in American in that time because most of the people are coming from Britain. There were some pastors who really felt loyal. They, had given oaths to the king, and they were to pray for the liberty, the blessing of the king. So they felt very conflicted. But most of them were overwhelmingly saying things are bad and we don't like this situation. There's a lot of that. So for a very long time, American history was kind of taught that you have the Great Awakening, Jonathan Edwards, George Whitefield, John Wesley, Charles Wesley do get the passion of the people stirred up. But then the Enlightenment comes and cools everyone off. And then not too long afterwards, the American Revolution happens. This is just not an accurate take. The Great Awakening had a huge effect on the population. One of the reasons that, I would argue that England and America stayed much more Christian than continental Europe was partially due to that revivals of the Great Awakening. And also one of the reasons that America, I think, had a deeper, more lasting impact with God was also due to the fact that the Great Awakening was very fundamental to her early founding ideas. Now, within 20 years of the Great Awakening happening, we have the French and Indian War, and then we have the American Revolution. It's too close together to remove these things. And if you look at what the pastors were preaching, this started to come out in about the late 80s and early 90s. They did a these big analysis on what were the pastors preaching, and they found that the pastors were preaching liberty, freedom, independence. Like, we need to be doing our own thing. And that, as John Knox said, resistance to tyranny is obedience to God. And they realized this was deeply embedded into the soul of America, that in their pulpits as early as the 1750s, people like Samuel Rutherford were out there saying, hey, we need to be a godly nation. Britain is only as useful to us as she plays a role in that. But if she's doing things that we don't agree with and she's not giving us a voice, we need to walk away from her. And the colonies had some very real grievances in that area. For example, they thought it was a great sin that Britain helped import slavery into the colonies. They blamed Britain for bringing slavery, an institution they did not want into the colonies. And they said, in many of their speeches would say things like the great sin of slavery is on us because of Britain. And we're not happy about that situation. Now we don't know how to unbind ourselves from it because they forced it on us. They also saw Britain as extremely untrustworthy. They saw her as decadent and luxurious and, living sinful lifestyles, the very lifestyles they moved to America to get away from. And so they're going, hey, we don't have any, real good friendship. And they would look at passages like Romans 13, it says to submit to authority. How do we do that? And they would say the submitting to authority is for the common good. And if the princes and rulers are refusing to live for the common good, then we're not supposed to have unlimited submission to evil princes. But in fact, just like a child submits to their parents until if the parent tries to kill the child's job is not to roll over and say, I submit. The child's job is to say, for my common good, I have to get away from you because what you wish for me is not my good anymore. And they would say the same way, if a ruler is ruling over us, only until that common good is met. And that was an argument from Jonathan Mayhew, but Samuel Cooper and several other preachers and people of that time were saying to their congregations, no, it's not submit unlimited authority to this monarch way over there. And the other thing was, because England was trying to get a tighter grip on the colonies for taxation and other purposes, which they thought, by the way, they had a contract with Britain, we will, call ourselves British and pay taxes. And likewise, we will be treated like British citizens and get a voice in Parliament. Well, they took away the voice of the people from Parliament. And so they said, why? We don't have any more obligation to you. You're not treating us as British citizens. So why should we stay under Britain? And continuing that too, though, they also saw Britain sending over Anglican bishops and starting to question the seminaries and teachings of the Puritans and the Presbyterians, saying like, hey, we don't want you to teach that anymore. The Church of England doesn't teach it that way. And they're going, no. Like, they called Princeton a seminary of sedition, and the Christians in New England were like, that's our seminary. Like, what are you doing? Leave our stuff alone. We like what we're doing. We don't want you coming over here and telling us what to think in our seminaries and our institutions.
Wow. So freedom and liberty is deeply embedded in the American church at this point, and England's trying to counteract that by sending their priests over to be like, no, no, no.
Yeah. There's like an old cartoon of basically like a boat trying to land with them bringing a bishop, and like the Americans were just like pushing the boat back into the water, like no thanks, like we're not taking that. And that was from an eyewitness account where they said that's basically what happened. The bishop kind of came it down, and the people just were like, "We're not letting you land here. Like you're not bringing this bishop over here to tell us what to do. We're not going to listen."